How to convert fear into neutral feelings by developing compassion. That is, fear of sharp objects. When every time one sees it, does one relax the body and concentrate on breathing until it subdues?
So how to avoid fear when you are confronted with a sharp object? And
how to convert fear into neutral feelings by developing compassion.
Yeah.
I.e., fear of sharp objects. Every time one sees it, does one relax the body and concentrate on breathing until it's subdued?
Yeah, you can do that if it works. Yeah, you can do anything that actually works for you. That's perfectly okay. But so often it's better to decide what works than having some kind of idea about what is right, because there isn't necessarily anything right. Yeah, as long as you find a method that works for you, that's the best. But the most powerful methods usually in overcoming fears or overcoming any kind of defilement is not just to focus on the body or focus in any way like that, but the best way is to use wisdom, because by using wisdom you can overcome the problem once and for all, and it doesn't really arise again in the future. So ask yourself, well, why am I afraid of these sharp objects? What is the big problem? And you will find that very often a lot of these fears are kind of irrational. Maybe you cut yourself before in a bad way, so that you have kind of you have built up a fear for some reason, and sometimes these fears can even come from past lives. But remember that, whether you are fearful or not is not really going to help your ability to deal with the sharp objects. The best way to deal with them is just to be mindful, to be careful around them. That is what matters. And if you are mindful and careful, it's probably you will be more successful in dealing with it than having fear. And sometimes the way that sometimes the way to think about things is to think, well, what is the worst thing that can happen with a sharp object? Okay, maybe you can cut yourself, yeah? And then what if you cut yourself? It's not such a big deal, yeah? Okay, you cut yourself, and then maybe you have to go to the doctor, get a few stitches, and then you're fine again soon enough. It's not like the end of the world. Actually, the end of the world is not so bad, The end of the world is pretty good. It's the beginning of the world that is the problem in Buddhism. So it's not the beginning of the world just because you cut yourself. But it's... So you think about the worst possible scenario, and sometimes the worst possible scenario in many cases is that you die. And so you think, okay, so I die. Then what? Is that really problematic if I die? And maybe even dying is not so problematic if you are a good person, you have a good rebirth afterwards. So you die, you're going to have to die anyway. So if you die a little bit earlier, that's the worst possible scenario. So in a sense, you realize after all that actually all these fears, they're not really very, very useful at all. All they do is kind of destroy your life and destroy your happiness here and now. It doesn't even help you necessarily to avoid the sharp objects. And the worst that can happen is usually only very, very small things. So try to be smart about it. Instead of thinking about what can go wrong in the future, think about what can go right in the future. Fear is this looking at what can go wrong. That's kind of what fear is about. But if you look at what can go right, well, you don't fear anything. And if you know that you are a Buddhist, you are living well, well, you are creating a good future for yourself already. It means that your future is already safeguarded. Yeah, your future is going to be good. So if your future is going to be good, why be worried about the future? The future is going to be fine, no worries. So just... these are kind of skillful ways of learning how to think about things differently. Fear is always the looking at the future, looking at what might go wrong in the future, when in fact, many things usually tend to go right instead.
Thank you, Ajahn. Dear Ajahn, I meditated this afternoon and realized what you meant about having to get rid of craving and aversion in order to stay mindful. How can I stay in the present moment without being distracted by thoughts of the past or future? How can I be happy with the present moment, especially when there really is nothing at the moment, just my breath and sound of birds chirping?
Well, to be happy with that, you have to first of all, you have to be really relaxed. Yeah, you have to enjoy that present moment. This is one of the reasons why willpower is usually counterproductive, because if you use willpower, normally you won't enjoy it, because willpower is kind of unpleasant. Yeah, it's hard to enjoy it if you have to sustain things with willpower. It tires you out. It's not really a satisfactory way of meditating. But if you are really relaxed and you're just enjoying the birds chirping, as you say, yeah, and you're just present, usually it's very pleasant. Usually it's very nice. So look for that niceness in what you're doing. Yeah, look for that beautiful feeling of peace that you have or whatever. And the more you understand the pleasure of being mindful, the more able you will be to meditate properly. That is really the critical thing. And also remember that all those distractions, that desires that may distract you from being in the present, actually they're not very interesting. All those distractions are just more of the same, going round and round and round, never really getting you anywhere. So why be interested in those? They are hollow, they are shallow, there's nothing to them. There's no future in those things. In fact, all it does is destroy your future, because it means that you don't have a chance to do what is right. So understand those things in the right way. Yeah, this is how you get rid of this desire and aversion, the interest in the past and the future. The future is made now by your meditation practice. That is where you develop that future. That is where it actually is made. That is what matters. Everything else is kind of irrelevant. So it takes time, however. Remember, the mind is very strongly conditioned. Habits are very powerful. And because habits are powerful, it takes time to reprogram the way you think. So really, the whole path of Buddhism is really one path of reprogramming your mind, changing your habits, learning to look at the world in a different way. This is the whole point of the exercise that we're trying to do here. We're understanding right view, looking at things in the right way. As you do that, gradually you get reprogrammed, gradually you turn in a different direction, and then all of these things start to happen. What we will see further down, when we look more in depth at the meditation practice, we will see that one of the most important aspects of meditation is to have a sense of joy in the meditation. Because the more happiness you have in meditation, the more joy you have, the more peaceful it is, all of these kind of things, the more you will be there. You want to be here. You don't want to be anywhere else. Yeah, if you get a lot of joy in the present, why on earth do you want to think about things? Those other things are just dukkha, they're just suffering compared to the joy you can have in meditation. So you want to meditate all the time. That's all you want to do. Really good meditators, they would rather just spend all the time in meditation if they can, and maybe a little bit of teaching, and that's pretty much it. So that is where you want to go further down the line, is to see if you can access some of that joy. If you can, well, then it really is going to be very easy to sustain that mindfulness.
Yeah, Ajahn. During this morning's recollection of death meditation, I had fears in the beginning as I don't know what to expect. Then my tears started to roll down my face when he told us to let go of our possessions and our dear ones. Is this normal, or is it due to strong attachments, or too emotional?
It's normal. Yeah, it's perfectly normal, because it is, of course, it is because of attachment. Yeah, and that's obviously the case, because this is the problem with our life. Our life is living close to people. It is, if you are a parent, you have a children, you're going to have very strong attachments to your children. It's very common. Parents usually have stronger attachment to the children than the children have to the parents. So it is to be expected. But on the other hand, it shows you something. Yeah, one of the things I said this morning, just lie on your deathbed. You're lying there. What does it feel like? And when you feel what it feels like, that is exactly, that is the information you should be looking for. Okay, I feel a sense of fear. I'm going to lose these things. And that, as you said, that shows you where your attachments are. That shows you some of the problem. So by doing this over time, you get used to the idea that you're going to die. You will also loosen your attachments. You will start to think differently about your family, about your possessions, about all the people in your life. Not in a bad way, not in a cold way, not in a way whereby you reject them, but in a way where you are more cool. You understand more about how to deal with them in a good way. So it's just a positive thing, really, because then it also allows you to treat them in a way which is more neutral, instead of getting angry and then loving and angry and loving and kind of all this emotional up and down all the time. You are more cool about things. You are loving in a more profound way, in a more kind of universal way. And this is all very beautiful, and it feels very good inside. And your family members will also benefit from that, because they will feel less controlled. They will feel more free. And that is also always a wonderful feeling, to have that sense of freedom. So for this reason, it's actually very powerful to do the contemplation of death in this way, because it tells you something about yourself, where your hang-ups are, where your attachments are, what are the problems. And by doing this gradually, you can ease some of those attachments. So if you feel fearful, don't worry too much, because gradually you will get used to this idea, and the fear is just a pointer to the problem.
Good day, Bhante. May I know, is it intention, Chetana and Sankhara the same? Is Chetana part of the 5 aggregates? Thank you, Bhante.
Yes, Chetana is part of the 5 aggregates. And as you say, the Chetana is part of the Sankhara aggregate. Yeah? And basically they mean the same thing. If you look at the suttas and you see how Sankhara is described in the suttas, it is actually described as Chetana. So for example, you say that you have the Sankharas, and then it is defined as Mano Sanchetana, yeah, as Chakku Sanchetana, Mano Sanchetana, Sota Sanchetana. In other words, it is described as the Chetana of the mind, the Chetana of the eye, the Chetana of the ear, etc. So it is, the two are basically equivalent. Sankhara means the will that we use. There may be a slight difference, and the slight difference is that Chetana can be said to be used also by arahants. Even if you're fully awakened, you can be said to have Chetana intention, because intention just means that you, to do anything, you have to have intention. Yeah, if you're going to eat, you have to intend to eat. If you're going to drink coffee, you have to intend to drink coffee, etc. To be part of this retreat, you have to intend to teach, whatever it is. Yeah, if an arahant is there, so you have to. Intention is always part of the makeup of anyone's mind, whereas Sankhara is the particular kind of Chetana which has to do with projecting the mind into the future, yeah, finding future happiness, the intention to create happiness in the future. And that's why it is part of the dependent origination, which then creates consciousness and causes the rebirth process to happen in the future. Something like that. Yeah.
Ajahn, would appreciate it if you could give some guidance on right intention and sati sampajana. Both concepts appear to have pointed towards the right direction of practice. Is right intention mainly setting the broad direction of the Eightfold Path, whereas sampajana is related to moment-to-moment situational awareness? In addition, under what context should one apply sati sampajana? Sati to sampajana. Could you please give some examples?
Well, yes, you're right. They are quite closely related to each other. And as you say, intention is about kind of setting out the broad view of the path where we are moving, because once you have the right view, then it's as if your mind turns towards the goals, the purposes, the aims that are really important. Yeah, you understand what to turn towards, you understand where you want to go, you understand what intentions you should have, what goals we should have, what aims we should have. All of these things emerge from right view, because we understand what actually is worthwhile and what is not worthwhile. Yeah, so you're right, it kind of sets out the agenda, if you like, right intention. And that agenda then is described by the rest of the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah, you live morally, you live with kindness. You want to purify the mind, which is the right effort. You want to meditate to become peaceful and to gain insight. You want to attain samadhi. It's like the whole thing becomes clear once you have right view. That right view then gives rise to the right goal, the right purpose, the agenda, what you want to do with your life. So it becomes the background which guides you in a sense. Sati Sampajanya is in many ways very similar, yeah, but it's, as you say, it's more maybe directed to specific things in your life. So as I was saying before, Sampajanya, we talked about on the first day, maybe you weren't here on the first day, but the idea there, it talks about the monastic, how a monastic has Sampajanya, and how the monastic has Sampajanya is that when you go into the village, you know that you're going into the village for the right reason. Yeah, you do it with the awareness that you're doing it to receive alms food. Yeah, the purpose is to receive alms. You go to a suitable village, not to any village, a suitable one where people are friendly, yeah, where people are likely to give you alms. Otherwise, no point in going there. If there's a bunch of unfriendly atheists who hate Buddhists, well, you will stay away from that village because it doesn't fulfill the purpose of what you're doing. It's not really suitable. Or maybe they really hate Buddhists in a really deep way. I don't know. I'm just kind of making up things as I go along here. So and of course with eating is the same thing. You know the suitable amount to eat. You know that you have to sustain yourself for the whole day. If you eat 1 meal a day, you have to eat the right amount, not to get tired, not to get hungry. Yeah. So everything is done with the path in mind. What is going to help me to carry out the practice? What is going to optimize the possibility of overcoming defilements, of remaining mindful, of practicing meditation? This is what it is about. So for the monastic, it is maybe fairly easy, the right amount of sleep, the right amount of food, doing things because they somehow lead you on the right track. When I do work, we do work that is a good kind of work in the monastery. We build a kuti, for example, which helps other people. In that way, we create some good karma, which enhances our practice. It is all about doing things in the right amounts and in the right way in this way. But you can also do it in lay life. Yeah, lay life is no different. You can ask yourself, what are the things you need to do to live better, to have more good results in daily life? Yeah, how many hours should you sleep? When should you eat? How much should you eat? What kind of entertainment should you enjoy? What kind of entertainment leads you down the garden path? Yeah, and you kind of you have very bad results. What makes you angry? Watching too much news on TV, is that useful? Or does it just make you angry because you see all the badness in the world? All of these kind of things, you ask yourself, what will help me? That is sampajanya. You have a clear awareness of the situation, and you do the things that will actually help you practicing on the path. So sati sampajanya is more specific to specific things, whereas right intention is more like a broad idea of the direction that you're heading in. So I think largely what you're saying is very spot on. So I tend to agree with that.
I think next question it will be covering later. Ajahn, for practice, breathing in, experiencing the whole body, does body refer to the breath or physical body?
I say it's a very controversial topic. Many people say different things. In my opinion, it refers to the breath, and I will explain later on why that is the case.
Okay. Ajahn, what does it mean when they have a spiritual painful feeling?
I should have mentioned that actually, because it's not obvious. You think that spiritual feelings, either they are good or they are neutral, but painful, what does that mean? Does that mean that the ghost is coming to harass you? Is that a spiritually painful feeling? Because ghosts are like spirits, right? No, it does not mean that. What it means is that, and this is how it is defined in the suttas, it is when you think, wow, all of these other people, they are arahants, they are sotapannas, they have all of these things. When shall I too become one who is a sotapanna, who is an arahant, who achieves jhanas? And then you kind of grieve a little bit because you're not there yet, and it kind of urges you on the path that you haven't actually reached those attainments yet. So it is like you are very keen on the attainment and you feel a bit sad that you haven't got there yet. That is the spiritually painful feeling here.
How do I distinguish between material and spiritual feeling, and what is the difference between peace and neutral feeling?
Between what?
Peace.
Peace and neutral feeling. Peace can be a neutral feeling. Peace is just a general emotion. You can be peaceful and have a blissful feeling at the same time. Peace just means that there is no agitation in the mind. Yeah. So there's no agitation. You feel peaceful. That can be with happy feeling, or it can be with neutral feeling. It can even be with painful feeling. Yeah. If it is a little bit painful, usually you get agitated if it is painful, but in certain special circumstances, you can be at peace even with pain. If you have very strong mindfulness, for example, or very strong samadhi, you can actually be at peace with pain as well. So peace is a general thing. Neutral feeling is the feeling. It is called the adukkha sukha in Pali, neither happy nor painful. He has translated it as neutral. Actually, the literal translation is neither painful nor pleasant. That is the literal translation. So they are slightly different things, but usually if you have neutral feeling, especially the neutral feeling of the jhana states, then peace will also be very powerful. But it is possible to have peace without having neutral feeling.
Thank you, Ajahn. What is material feeling versus worldly feeling?
Well, it's just that I prefer the translation worldly, because what we are dealing with here is we're dealing with the feelings to do with the five senses. Yeah, so if you see something and it makes you feel good, that's he calls that a material feeling. I would call that a worldly feeling. Yeah, because it has to do with the five senses. Material to me sounds a bit too. It's not really, it's a bit indirect way of talking about this. I don't feel it's obvious enough what it means. I would call it worldly. Worldly refers to the world of the five senses. Yeah. That's basically the difference.
Yeah, Ajahn. When there are no feelings, is it considered neutral feelings?
The thing is that there is always a feeling. Yeah, that is kind of the point. And the feeling when there is no bliss and no pain, then that is called no bliss, no pain feeling. That is also a feeling. And that is basically what neutral feeling is. And usually when there is a neutral feeling, it feels like there is no feeling. But actually, that too is a kind of feeling, because the reason it is called a feeling is because actually it is very attractive. One of the things that you find when you come to the very end of feelings, you go beyond into the fourth jhana in these very profound states, you actually realize for the first time that neutral feeling, when there's no bliss and there's no pain, is preferable to the bliss. This is one of the strange things about the Buddhist path. Yeah, you come to the very end, neutral is better than happy. And it sounds really strange because in our ordinary life, it doesn't feel like that at all. Neutral means you are bored. Yeah, oh, yawn. Life is terrible if things are neutral. You don't want it to be neutral. That's absolutely sure. You would have the bliss, you have the excitement, the joy of the world. But on the spiritual path, if you go deeply enough, you actually realize that neutral is better than happy feelings, because it is very refined, very, very refined and incredibly peaceful. That's why it is so powerful.
Thank you. For a beginner, I'm not sure how to do breath meditation. Is it okay to do a simple mantra like Buddho? Or
Can do.
metta meditation all the time? Example, may I be well and happy?
Yeah, you can do those things, and you have to try what works. Yeah, very often it is about what works and what you can do. And for many people, the mindfulness may not be strong enough to do breath meditation. It's a very common problem. Yeah, even among monastics, you have that problem. So what you have to do is do something else. Do the mantra meditation, but more important than that is to purify all the foundational aspects of the path. Yeah, purify your virtue, purify your view, so that one day you can come back to the breath, because the breath is the most important meditation object. Eventually you can come back to the breath. You don't have to do mantra anymore. Mantra is quite a coarse way of doing meditation. The Buddha doesn't really speak about mantras at all. Yeah, there's nothing in the sutras about mantras anywhere. the reason why sometimes in the Buddhism we do mantra meditation like Buddha, this sort of thing, is because that is considered a kind of Buddha nusati. It is considered a contemplation of the Buddha, a recollection of the Buddha. But actually, it is not really a recollection of the Buddha at all. It's just a mantra meditation. Recollection of the Buddha means understanding the qualities of the Buddha. That is how it is described in the suttas. So mantra meditation is not really part of the way the Buddha taught meditation. The way he taught it was anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. So aim to get back to anapanasati eventually. In the meantime, do something else just to feel peaceful, just to feel at ease. But come back to the breath eventually.
Dear Ajahn, thank you for your wonderful teaching. When piti sukha arise in my meditation, my physical body feels bliss and pleasure very strongly. Is this in my mind? Should I ignore these physical feelings and focus more on the breath, or just wait till the sensations have passed, then go back to the breath? Thank you, Ajahn.
No, it's good. It is not, even though it is physical, it is still spiritual. Yeah, it is still a spiritual feeling. It is not 100% spiritual. There's a little bit material, a little bit sensory left, but it's already moving towards the spiritual. So if you feel that kind of bliss and rapture in your meditation, it's a very positive sign. You're already heading in the right direction. So keep on going with that. Usually, I would say you should still hang out with the breath. The point here is that you can both do the breath and experience the feelings at the same time. Yeah, this is kind of the idea here. So you can still use the breath as a kind of anchor, as a kind of thing that you stay with, and you allow the feelings and the emotions to develop together with the breath in this way. The breath calms down, the emotions become more powerful and more calm, all of this developing together. If you cannot see the breath anymore, the breath kind of fades away, then you can stay only with those emotions and allow just the sheer happiness of the emotions to take over and develop that even further. But usually you still use the breath as an anchor at this particular point until you get to the nimittas. When you get to the nimittas, the bright lights in the mind, the obasa, the lights, that's usually where you start letting go of the breath more completely, because then the breath becomes very, very weak, fading into the background, sometimes disappearing completely.
Dear Ajahn, from your explanation, does it mean that there was no suttas instructing us not to move when there are painful feelings? If yes, then appreciate Achahn's guidance on when do we shift or correct our posture to alleviate pain.
Yeah.
What contemplation should come to our mind during the process?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, there is no sutta where the Buddha says you should not shift. He doesn't say anywhere you should sit still all the time. In fact, I would say that this is the atta kilamatana yoga, is the self-tormenting, to force yourself to sit with lots of pain. I think it goes against the Buddha's advice as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a very bad idea. And so what we should do, you are right, there is always going to be a little bit of pain in the body, so we shouldn't shift straight away. If you move straight away, you're going to be moving all the time, and that is no good. But when you feel that the pain becomes obsessive, yeah, your mind cannot really get rid of it. You cannot ignore it anymore. It's impossible to ignore, and your mind goes there. Yeah, then move. And if you have any doubt, move. It's better to move if you have doubt than not to move, because if you are going to be in pain, it's going to be very disruptive for your meditation. Usually meditation thrives on happiness, on joy, on peace, on enjoying what you're doing. You're going to discourage yourself from meditation if you sit with too much pain. It's very problematic, and it destroys the whole path for so many people.